Welcome everybody. I can see there's quite a few people in the room. This is the third of 3 sessions that we've been invited to run, and we've been running these with, I don't know if Nikki's able to hear.
Yes, I am finally connected. My apologies. For some reason I had poor connectivity and I had to run to my neighbor's house. So I am here now in their setup and their earphones looking at Table Mountain. What a beautiful view.
Oh, fantastic.
So apologies for joining late. Shall I kick off and I just want to thank everybody for joining and welcome to the third and final session in our ACCA Speak to Us series with BPP and ACCA. So Claire, I don't know if you have been introduced yet, but let me do the honors. You've introduced yourself? Okay, so with me today I have Claire Evans, and Claire is the head of the ACCA and FIA programs at BPP. BPP is the provider with consistently higher pass rates than the global average. And I always say it's easy enough as a provider to have the odd high pass rate and to boast with that, but it really matters when there's consistently higher pass rates, and that means that the underlying pedagogy, the underlying process of learning is really tried and tested and yields results. So thank you, Tom, for joining us on behalf of BPP. Claire, so welcome. This is your third session here in South Africa. Can you maybe just tell us a little bit about your role at BPP as head of programs?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you again for inviting us. This is the third session, so some of you on the call have probably been to a couple of the earlier ones. We did the first one, why study ACCA with BPP, and then the second one last month was to do with ACCA practical experience, so how to do your 3-year practical experience. And this is the third one, which is very timely as we head towards the June 21 sitting. So I've been counting down, I think we're about 3.5 weeks away, so don't panic, there's still time. And this session is to go through some key things to get you ready for your online exams. So I'm Claire Evans, I'm head of ACCA and FIA at BPP, as Nikki's kindly mentioned, and I've been at BPP about 15 years now. I did start as a tutor teaching face-to-face classes, and then I progressed to move on to online teaching. I was apprehensive because I don't like IT, but absolutely love it because it's recorded, people seem to be more relaxed, and it saves me having to travel, which in the current times has been an absolute blessing. I then became head of program about 4 or 5 years ago, which means I liaise with ACCA on a frequent basis to check we are covering the appropriate syllabus areas, preparing tutors and students for any changes that are coming with the exams, and then obviously making sure that we are ready and getting the good pass rates every sitting as well. So I get to analyse those with bated breath every quarter.
Excellent. You know, before you get started, I just want to mention that out of the first 2 sessions, one of the student feedbacks that I really liked the most was somebody said they can just feel your passion for the product and how much you believe in it. And it's because of that belief that they believe in it. And you really encouraged a lot of our students to do you say shoulder to put shoulder to the wheel, to pull up their socks, or to just be inspired again? So tall order for tonight. We're looking for the same inspiration.
I know, I really appreciate that, and that's great feedback. I mean, I'm ACCA qualified myself, so I sat in BPP Leeds in the UK as a student, and then obviously did a proper job, as my parents would call it, for a couple of years, and then I just wanted to come back and do exams and questions and teach. But certainly we do so many things behind the scenes to make sure the quality, the standard is there to make sure you get through that experience. And so I've been a student, I know what it's like to do the exams, and I don't want anyone to have a harder journey than is necessary. So even if we can get one student through sit in earlier than they perhaps would have done, that is perfect. And if we can get you all qualified, I just remember the feeling of when I got that final, it was an email back then to say that I'd qualified, and I just burst into tears. Everyone thought I'd failed, and I had the belief that I'd passed. So yeah, I just hope you all get that same feeling, that you get that email or however they respond these days, but that final feeling when you do qualify. Okay, so the session is hopefully going to get you those few extra marks, and it's to look at the CBE software, which you obviously are all going to be doing for Applied Skills and Strategic Professional. And I worry that students don't know what resources are out there, they don't use them, and maybe they get a little bit overconfident with the software. And I've seen so many students speak to me after exam results come out, if only I'd done. So if I can share with you their little gems, my little gems, hopefully then none of you will have the discussion in June, July, when the results come out, wishing you'd done something different. So the slide I've got on screen now is just explaining about BPP. So BPP have been in teaching for 45 years now. We do a lot, I do a lot to make sure we've got that approved content provider status and the approved platinum status. So we have to have annual inspections, and they check absolutely everything from the student journey, the booking process, what's on the booking forms, the quality of recordings for live lectures, the quality of the content we teach, the tutor guidance that we give to ourselves and our training providers. So we do get an inspection every year to check that we are up to standard. And I welcome that, because I'm so proud that we've managed to get that badge. I mean, it's a tiny little red dot, but the amount of work that goes in behind the scenes to get that little tiny red dot. We are also, I say, approved content and tuition providers. The content is that ACCA review our books, and they review them every year to check we've covered everything. We've got the right amount of coverage of syllabus areas, the right amount of questions, the past exam questions. So again, two little dots, but they take a lot of getting hold of those two little dots for qualifications. We are also very high up with our pass rates. I get them every quarter, and we are well above the global pass rates. And it's the tutors that we work with, they are outstanding. All of our tutors, training providers, they've all done the job. A lot of them have done the qualification themselves. So they do bring in lots of real life examples, as well as obviously the quality tuition that's required. So BPP, hopefully a quality standard that you can be proud to study with. So this session is not a technical update for TX or FR or AA. It is a generic overview of the things you should be doing in these 3 weeks counting down to June. So you've obviously got your technical content, which you need to do lots of question practice. This session is to get you ready and confident on the CBE software. So not a technical questions on FR and TX. I don't teach those papers, so I'll be no use. So just got my favourite slide on the screen. These are the levels of ACCA qualification. So we've got the applied knowledge. They're the ones you do on demand throughout the year. You've then got the applied skills papers, which I'll focus on tonight, and the strategic professional ones that again I'll focus on tonight. Now, applied skills have been computer-based for longer than strategic professional. Some countries are still doing strategic professional as paper-based exams, and they're just slowly transitioning across. I say slowly, they are doing them much faster than they expected because of the COVID pandemic. So they have accelerated getting the strategic papers into CBE format, so that gives them the option to then do computer-based exams if they need to, rather than the paper one. So applied skills have been around for a while, and strategic professional are currently transitioning, but we are nearly there. So applied skills, most people will do those before they come up to strategic professional. Those that have been exempted from applied skills, it is quite a surprise when you get up to strategic professional and there's a computer involved. So I want to cover tonight the key things to look out for, the key tips on how to prepare for the computer-based exams. When I was studying, they were all handwritten, and I can imagine how stressed I would be if they suddenly turned the paper exams into a computer exam based on me not liking computers anyway. So hopefully if somebody hasn't done a single exam yet on the computer, there might be somebody out there. We can give you a little bit of experience on that as well. So applied skills. Students usually come up through applied knowledge to do applied skills. And when I get a student for applied skills, it's to me the transition paper. So applied knowledge are fully auto-marked. They are traditional multiple choice. You get some of the fill the blanks, select all that apply, but they are all automatic computer marked. You get your response straight away. And I think they really epitomize what everybody says is bad about the youth of society at the moment. Everybody wants instant gratification, instant feedback. You've got Facebook, FaceTime, and Instagram, and you've got people instantly put something on and expect a reaction. And those lower level papers feed on that. You do an exam question and you instantly know whether you got it right or wrong. And that appeals to people who tend to like instant reactions. The applied skills papers move away from that in that you get some objective questions where you get instant reaction and auto marking, but you also have some CRQ questions, which are the constructive response questions, and they require human marking. So they require you to sit your exam and wait 5 weeks until you get your result, which a lot of students are not used to, and they don't understand the process. They don't understand why it's 5 weeks. It used to be 2 months when I was studying. You had to wait 2 months for your exam. Then you had to wait until another 6 months for the actual exam to be sat again. We only had them in June and December. And ACCA have responded and given you 4 sittings a year, and they have reduced the marking period from 2 months down to 5 weeks, but they still do need that human marking. What they do is they get the exams, they mark them, they moderate them, they look at the quality of the marking scheme. Now students have actually sat it, and then they give the results out. And that's why it takes 5 weeks. But for most students who are brought into the qualification expecting to get instant results, that can be quite a surprise. So the exam is a stepping stone in my mind to strategic professional. Strategic professional is fully human marked. There's none of this instant auto marking, multiple choice. So you've got to me 3 levels: fully automatic, partially automatic, and not at all automatic in terms of the question types. And the skill of a student is recognizing that the exams are different and recognizing that they need to study differently for the exams. Now, I'd probably get sacked for this, but when I get a student who's come up from applied knowledge to applied skills, I feel like I want to shake them and go, stop learning in the way that you are. To pass an applied knowledge exam, you just need to have a photographic memory and memorize all the facts. That will not work for an applied skills exam, well, half of it, and it certainly won't work for the strategic professional. And I've sat at many meetings with ACCA and the examining teams at ACCA, and they're like a fixed record. They go, students have not adapted to the new exam style. Students do not know how to answer the CRQ questions. Students do not spend enough time on the CRQ questions. And I feel like popping my hand up and going, it's because you brought them in wanting instant responses and marking. Then you try and tailor them off it with half instant marking at applied skills. And then there's no instant marking, but they require a different approach. And I say that's why students struggle when they go up a level. I'm sure some of you have been there. It's quite a shock when you go up to the next level from applied knowledge to applied skills, and certainly to strategic. But I say, I do feel like I want to get hold of the student, shake them and go, you need to study differently. And say, if you take nothing else away from this session tonight, please think about your approach to studying for each of the levels. Students totally underestimate the differences, and students do not adapt their learning style because of those differences. So this slide on the screen, I created it myself, this one. It's not stolen from anywhere, but you've got, what are the differences? On demand and instant, whereas applied skills is partially on demand with those instant objective tests, but you also then have those section C questions. And then if you are a strategic student, it's all section C questions. You've got a fully human marked exam. So we need to recognize those differences and think about the exam approach differently. So I'm going to look at applied skills and strategic. So if you are a strategic student going, this session is not for me, I do get to strategic as well. So please bear with me. A lot of what I'm saying will be relevant to both levels. So please hang on in there if you're a strategic student. Okay, so applied skills, they are all objective tested and then CRQ questions. They are all 3 hours unless you have extra time for medical reasons, etc. But they are 3-hour exams for most students. And you'll all have different experiences, but some students will finish in 2 hours. Some students will whiz through the objective tests and then don't know how to fill the time up doing CRQ questions. Some students just do very short answers to CRQ questions because they are not expanding enough. We've got bullet points. And this is again where I want to shake those students and go, you do not answer it in bullet points and short. You're thinking it's short and bang short answers because of it being objective tests for applied knowledge. They're very, very different types of questions. So you cannot be short, concise, bullet pointy. You've got longer written questions, and the problem is students don't elaborate enough, expand enough. They're trying to approach long questions with an OT style attack, and it doesn't work. Just watch out there for the audit paper. It's special. It's my paper, that one. We've only got section A and a section B, so there is no section C, but it's still the same basis. There are some auto-marked and some constructive response questions. And you'll all be good at objective test questions because you all like doing them. You'll all happily flick through. Is it A? Is it B? My battle is always getting students to sit and do the longer questions. I say we'll all happily test ourselves with a quick OT. Did I get it right or not? A boost of adrenaline, and put the book down. Getting a student to do a longer question is the biggest battle. Where do students fail and pass? Most students pass the technical objective tests, but fail the CRQ bits. And somebody will probably type there, but do I have to pass both section A, B, and C? It's obviously an overall mark, but if you were to look at your performance on section A, B, and separately C, most students will pass the OT questions and fail the longer questions. So if I'm going to add value tonight, which is my objective, it'll be how do I boost your section C questions? And then for strategic people, it's every question because they're all constructive responses. So if you are doing the applied skills papers, that is a 3-hour exam. So that should be 1.8 minutes per mark. And I would recommend that you look at your attack of OT questions. You will whiz through them faster. So why not be brave enough to allocate 1.4 minutes per mark to the objective test questions and then realign maybe 2 or 2.2 minutes per mark for the section C questions. I have students that don't finish a paper. You are better to score on every question than just to really nail section A and B. You're better to do every single section. So what I used to do when I was a student, and I still do it when I'm teaching, is I put clock times next to each of the sections. So I work out maybe on 1.4 or 2.2 minutes per mark, what time should I move on? So I'd allocate, well, section A, I need to spend 18 minutes on it. That means I start at 9, move on at 9:18, then move on at 10:20 and 10:28, 11 o'clock. I actually put the clock times next to each of the sections because it's all right saying I'm going to do 10 minutes here and 20 minutes there. You'll then sit there and go, what time did I start? What should I do? But I actually used to put the clock times next to it. Now, obviously on a CBE exam, if you are sitting your exam in a physical ACCA exam centre, you are allowed a piece of scrap paper to write on. If you are sitting your exam remotely because of the COVID situation, you will have to use the scratch pad on the software, which is a virtual piece of paper. And you can put your clock times next to it. It doesn't take long to do, and it will be the best time spent in your exam, making sure you spread yourself across the script. And again, that works for your strategic papers as well. Just watch your timings because you're at 3¼ hours, unless you're doing SBL, the monster, which is 4 hours. So just think about your timing across that exam. So strategic professional students, I did get to you. You've got, what is the difference from either applied skills or university? And again, this is a slide I've put together to go, what is the difference from studying? And again, I probably get sacked for shaking my students, but I get a student at strategic level. And again, I want to shake them and go, stop studying like you are. You need a new approach. So studying for applied knowledge, you can have a photographic memory and just learn the course notes. Applied skills, you can get away with that memorizing for half of the exam, which is your OT element, but you need to then start writing, expanding, and doing a bit of a longer answer for your objective and CRQ answers. You've then got, when you get to strategic professional, they are all longer exams. Now, people that have written for university write me lengths and lengths and lengths, and they're not to the point. So I have students that are university students, depends what degree they've got. If it's something like history or geography, that's the worst type, because they will just write and write and write and not do calculations. But they write too much if they've been at university, because you're encouraged to write so many words and lengthy explanations and reference it to texts and articles. If you've got somebody who's come up from applied skills, they still can't expand on a bullet point. So I'll be teaching a classroom and I have bullet point students and massive essay students, and I need in between. So when you are writing for ACCA professional exams, it should be short and punchy, not so short it's a bullet point, but you need to be there telling me this is the paragraph heading, this is the subheading, this is the paragraph, and again another subheading. I always tell my students, imagine you are writing this report for your boss or for a client. They've rushed back to their desk, they're in between meetings, they're juggling lots of things. They find your piece of paper on their desk. Imagine their face when it's 20 pages long without any headings. They'll be like, what is this? I have no time to read this. That's the university student, not welcomed. Next, they get there and they've got the applied knowledge, applied skills student who is just doing bullet points. And they've got there and they're like, what's this? It's a shopping list. They need somewhere in between, and they want it to be concise, but not too concise. And they want to have bullet points with some headings and a little bit of an explanation. So really key that you flag up, this is what the report is about, because I know you're whizzing around and your head's in different things. So you need to be this setting the scene, and then you need to be telling me, these are the points you need to know in enough detail that they don't have to go and explore further or find a study text themselves, and equally not so that they're 5 hours later still reading it. So the big difference is how you approach it from your two different backgrounds as you build up. Okay, the next one I've got is, if you are that applied skills student, I say the warning is, it is not factual learning, it's scenarios. How does this help a client? And if you look at any of the examiner reports, you will see that it's often saying needs to relate to the scenario. That must be the most written comment from an examiner. I'd be retired if I got £1 every time I read that. And there is a cheats way of how you can relate it to the scenario. And the cheats way is, when you've got your electronic highlighter, do you go through your exam and highlight the company name and the people's names? So it might have a company, a subsidiary, maybe a building they're thinking of buying, maybe they've got some values of some assets. Have you used those in your answer? Now, students will then go to the far extreme and copy the full scenario out. We don't want copying the full scenario, but the easiest way to relate to your scenario is to use the company's name as you're going through, and then use people's names. So if they've got a financial director, refer to them in name, and that will get your mindset into the exam, and it shows your examiner that you've related it to that scenario, even if it is just using the company name, which is very basic, but it is a cheats way of starting to use that scenario. I ask my students on a revision course, do a question, a long one, and then I get them to get a physical highlighter pen, if it's handwritten, or an electronic version of a highlighter pen. And I'll say to them, can you highlight the company names, the company people, and some of the assets or buildings that they're buying? And they'll give me a blank sheet, and I'll be like, well, you've not related it to the scenario. So it's a cheats way of starting to use the scenario. Please don't copy the full thing out, just use some of the names, the company names, and the people's names. I'll say difference between them is you need to be approaching it differently. It's not just learning the notes, that will not get you through. You need to be telling this client, this is what it means for you. I know the notes, I'm now interpreting them for your situation. And that's where you get your extra marks, and you'll get on well with applied skills, longer questions, and your strategic ones. Your strategic exam format, you can see that we've got 6 papers. And don't panic, there's not suddenly 2 extra. You've got your essentials, which are SBL and SBR. You've then got 4 where you choose 2 of your favourites. So it is 2 from the option papers. And again, you can see these are quite meaty questions, 50 markers for most of them, and then 225 markers. So you should be writing for an hour and a half for that 50 marker in one of the normal 3¼ hour exams. Now, I say writing, obviously, I mean typing these days. If you were typing for an hour and a half, you would still get a lot written. And I think you should be planning that time. So taking some time out of your hour and a half to plan, to think. Now, I really do wish my exams had been on a computer, because I could have put my headers in, I could have then inserted my text, moved bits around. It really would have helped with planning. When I was planning as a student, I had a spider diagram written on a sheet of paper, highlighted what I was going to use as my headings, and then I would physically tick the topics off as I'd handwritten them up with my sore hand. But when you're doing your planning, you can actually start planning in your word processor area, and you can just then start inserting the body and bulk underneath that. So out of that hour and a half for a normal 50 marker, I would probably be planning and reading and highlighting the names of the company, people. I'd probably be doing that for like 15, 20 minutes if I was brave. And then I would get a better quality answer. Going back to what I've said between my university student and my applied skills student, we don't want masses and masses. We don't want bullet points. We see somewhere in between. So it's not that you need to be typing madly for an hour and a half. It's just, what is the process? What's the key priority? Have you got the key big thing at the top and then the smaller points further down? And that's where you start to get your professional marks for presenting it to that client that's rushed in and grabbed the report. Have you told them the big things first? Have you said, bang, 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 these at a scan are the key topics I'm going to cover, so can I see them as subheadings? They don't want excellence. They don't want us to be typesetters. They just want it to look so they can read it, and they really can read it because it's not handwritten anymore, and so that it's prioritized, but you've got the joy of being able to move bits around. So thinking about your time, is it 1.8 minutes per mark for every single applied skills question? Is it going to be writing and typing furiously for the full time at strategic? Or are you going to break that time and give yourself some breathing space to think about your structure? And that will give you the better, stronger answer. So I don't know if I've got any questions that are coming in so far. I don't know, Nikki, if there's anything you want to jump in with or anything.
No questions at the moment. There are some questions in the chat, but nothing that that's specifically I would like to bring in now.
Perfect, that's fine. You're my eyes for me in that chat box. I'll keep going. I'll probably cover most of the points as I go along, but I thought I'd better breathe and just give people a chance. Thank you. So the next bit I've got is exam focus. So effective reading and planning time. Oh, this takes me back. I wish they still did this, but they don't. A couple of years ago, they used to isolate reading time, and some of you might even remember this, and if you've had a break from studies, please be aware this is not allowed anymore, but you used to have at Applied Skills a 3-hour exam and 15 minutes reading time, and they used to, I loved it, make the students sit for 15 minutes and just read. They couldn't do anything, they couldn't answer, they had to read. And I loved that because it made them think about it, think about the structure, read all of the questions, because so many people miss bits of questions. But I would love to do that. I'd like to go, here's your exam, sit on your hands for 15 minutes and just evaluate what's in that exam. Now, unfortunately, they took that away, and they now give you, for Applied Skills, 3 hours, go, you can start straight away. And students do start A, B, C, D, pecking at the objective test questions, rather than evaluate which questions are best for me to start first, where's my time allocation, what order should I do the exam in. That has gone out the window for a lot of students because they don't make you sit there for that isolated time, which was brilliant. And again, for strategic professional, it's not been gone that long. There is no reading time again. It's just all enrolled in that 3 hours and 15 or 4 hours for SBL. So try and be disciplined. Try and make me proud and go, I'm going to make Claire happy, and give it 10 minutes to evaluate the script and to think about the order and the timings. And you can obviously now just type things in the scratch pad or on a sheet of paper for your order and your notes and the structure and logic. So maybe try and do that even though it's not required by ACCA. It will make a stronger answer. So thinking about the structure, the reading time, which we don't make you have anymore. What do I need to think about my CBE exam preparation? Now, you've probably heard me, if you've been to my earlier sessions 1 and 2 for these sessions, you'll have heard me talking about driving a car. And it's just the best analogy that I can use, and I will never wear it out. If you are doing your exam on a computer-based exam format, I don't want the first time you see that computer to be the day of your real exam. The same as if you are doing a driving test, the first time you get in the car isn't the day of your driving test. You will have practiced, rehearsed, done some reverse parking. You do not just turn up on the day and go, whoa, I wonder what happens here. And the same thing for CBE software. You should have practiced, rehearsed, you should have got your best layout sorted out. So, I mean, it's quite obvious what some of the questions will be. They'll ask for tax, an income tax question, a corporation tax question. When you're looking at financial statements, they'll ask you for some standard cash flow or some asset statements. They are quite standard, and I would like all of you to have practiced and performed your ideal layout and template and pro formas. You shouldn't be going into your exam and thinking, oh, how do I do this? And should that be in a column that way? Or should I have an extra line? You should go in autopilot, fully rehearsed, and know this is what I need to set out to then answer the question. So please practice. There are many, many resources that I'll run through as to where you can practice this software. But the number of students that go in and go, oh, I was put off by the computer, I missed a question out. How can you miss a question when you know that there's a flag mechanism? How can you have not known whether to do it in word processor or spreadsheet? So if you're doing applied skills, ACCA help you out, and they give you a space which they have decided as examiners should be a word processor or a spreadsheet space. When you get to strategic professional, they let you choose, and they throw in slideshows just to make it more fun. So you can do word processor response area, spreadsheet response area, or slideshow response area. And students tell me, oh, I wasted 10 minutes because I didn't know which to use. And to me, it's like, well, the questions you would have done a similar one as part of your rehearsal. So how do you not know where to put it and how to respond and how to do a trail and a reference between the two different types? So it really is practice and practice. I tell my tutors, get in that software, show it to the students, show how they have standard ones that you should use standard formats for. And again, you should be practicing in these last 3 weeks. This is how they want this one laid out. This is how they want that one laid out. And just straight in there, bang, 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 your pro formas and your format in those software packages. So I've already stolen the thunder of this examiner. This is an AA audit examiner, and he's just said what I have written and read so many times. Candidates need to ensure that their answers relate to the scenario. They are not giving adequate answers. They are not explaining adequately enough. And I say that's me again wanting to shake these poor students that need to change their learning style from, I just need to know about, is it A, B, C, D? I need to memorize this so I can spot it. That does not work for CRQ questions. That does not work for your longer strategic exam questions. You've got to do something different. Strategic professional. These are aimed at postgraduate level, master's level. Students always say to me, why are the option paper pass rates so bad? Not at BPP, but for the global ACCA ones, they are quite low. We're quite scary. Only 30–40% of the students submitting to a sit-in for option papers will pass. We had 100% for AFM last time at BPP. I was thrilled. It's the highest. Obviously can't get any higher than that, but AFM pass rate for those that were doing our program and following all the requirements we make them do, 100% versus ACCA's 30–40%. But they are aimed at being tough. They're aimed at being a master's level degree. And I always say, would you want everyone to be able to just walk in off the street and then become an ACCA qualified accountant? No, I wouldn't. I've worked hard. I've sweated blood and tears. I don't want people just to get this easily. There is a standard, there is a bar, and we should all be proud of that as well. So the standard for option papers is really hard. And so we need to make sure we do every step we can to get those extra little marks, because at strategic, you get students that fail with 47, 48. So if they've just performed something they've done before, that'll make them more comfortable, more confident. That can find the extra couple of marks. I want to show you the verbs that we have. So the verbs are very different. You can see down on the left-hand side, there's intellectual levels 1, 2, and 3. And basically, as you head up through the applied knowledge, skills, and strategic, you will see that they are going through levels 1, 2, and 3 at strategic. And I never used to care about these verbs, but they really do make a difference. So identify means to go through the scenario with your virtual highlighter and identify things from the scenario. Not just from your course notes, but what is it in that scenario that you need to spot? Compare and contrast is my favorite verb. I really am sad with the favorite verb. And that's where it says, compare two things. So I would expect your layout to go, this is something for one, and that's it for another. This is what it is for one, and that's it for another. So if you're comparing and contrasting, I'm expecting pairs of paragraphs. So you are telling me what is different between these two things. And how do I know it's pairs of paragraphs? Because I've seen that word in a scenario, in a question, and I've looked at the answers at the back and I've gone, oh, when that word comes up, look, it's in pairs. And then I've got, as you head along, assess. So assess is, tell me what it says in the scenario, and then what does that mean for my client? This is the busy client rushing in, grabbing your report. They need to know how that relates to them. They've paid you as their advisor. So they don't just want to know this is what the course notes say. They could buy the books from us and do that bit themselves. They've paid you as an expert to go, this is what the books say, so you need to do this. This is what the books say, you need to do that. And again, that's a two-pronged approach. Technical detail, what it means to the client. Technical detail, what it means to the client. And if that means your subheadings are issue 1, and then company ABC, issue 1 and company ABC, I can see that you've got the issue and then you've related it to your scenario. And I say to my students, when you see that verb, let's set it up. So we've got issue, client, issue, client, issue, client. And that makes the student think, I've not written anything for the client. I need to add something more. And by forcing them to do that, they then relate it to the client better and get so many better marks from doing that. So what you need to do, if you've got a little list of what your activities and actions are from this session, is look at the verb in a question and then look to see what the format of the answer is. And you'll start to see patterns like that. So answer the question set. Answer the question that is related to the verb that they've got in there. Make sure you have cheated, if you see it as cheating, by adding the company's name, the company's people, and the assets. There are a lot of resources out there. One of them is an example on the screen now, a help sheet from ACCA. So they do help sheets for every paper. They do little videos for every paper. So there is a video that says, this is how you use the CBE software for a tax paper, for FM, for AFM. And the examining team at ACCA have all been tasked to do a 15-minute recording to show how would I lay a tax thing out on a spreadsheet? How would I lay out an answer to an IRR calculation in a spreadsheet? How would I use the IRR formula that's in the spreadsheet? So go and explore and look for those videos. I've got SBL there. Obviously, it's special because it's got those 20 professional marks. Make sure you are looking at doing the ethics module before that. Probably not good timing now because we're so close to the exam. But if you are going to do SBL in future sittings, it really helps to do SBL just after your ethics module. You are 25% more likely to pass. That's ACCA's numbers. When it comes to professional skills, I always believe that these will come if you are technically good. And if you have a technically strong student, the skills will be high. A technically weak student, the skills tend to be low. So I wouldn't worry too much about your professional skills over and above the technical. As I say, they do seem to correlate. There's been lots of exams where they've looked at this. So concentrate on your technical. And then when you debrief your questions that you've done, look to see what they've put in terms of nice summaries, nice endings, introductions, and that's where your professional marks come from. From prioritizing, this is the biggest thing, it's at the top of a report, so this is not as important, it's lower at the report. That's where you get your professional skills. And again, CBE skills will help with that. You get professional marks across all strategic. They're just not 20, they're just down to 2s and 4s. And they were introduced, 2018, September 2018 was when they started to come in. Okay, so CPE resources. If you are a BPP student, they've got the hub access at the bottom of the hub. Very bottom tile is a blank software. And again, if you are looking at the ACCA platform that you can practice on, so log on to ACCA where you pay your exam fees. There is also an ACCA blank software area. What I don't ever want to see is somebody with one of our practice and revision kits open and a sheet of paper and a pen. That is not replicating what's going to happen in the exam. What I like to see is a P&R kit open and then a blank software open on the laptop. Don't care whether it's BPPs or ACCAs, as long as it is a blank software, and then the student reads the question and starts typing in. The software that ACCA provide is not Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Word, and that's not mean it's not ACCA being different from anybody else. All the qualifications that we teach all have their own versions of a word processor and their own versions of a spreadsheet. Now, that means you've just got to practice in it to know the things that are slightly different. There is a lot of overlap, but there is the odd annoying difference. And I don't want you to find that on exam day. There is also the reset button, which will clear everything. I don't want that to happen on real exam day. I want you to press it when you've spent 2 hours sat at home on a weekend doing a question. I'd rather you found that button and had the distress at that point than in the real exam, because you won't do it again. So practice in the software. The BPP one is a version same functionality as the ACCA's. So you've got it in 2 locations. ACCA software also has some pre-populated exams, at least 3 for every paper. So you go into where you pay your exam fees. You can then self-assign whichever paper you happen to be doing this sitting. It will then have a practice test and a specimen test. And say SBL, I think, has a few more, but a minimum of 3 for each paper. And I still find it shocking when I ask students, have you been in and have you assigned yourself some of ACCA's exams? Students will go, I didn't know I could have them. I didn't know I could access them. Or they go onto the ACCA website where it says click on a CBE exam. It then shows you up to your access page for your My ACCA account. And students think it's prohibited access. They've got into a staff area. Oh, I can't go in there. It's just your My ACCA where you log in to pay your exam fees. So you can either get to it via the ACCA website, which will route you to this home page to log in, or you can just go straight into logging on where you pay your fees, and they're all in there. And you don't need to worry, these don't count towards your real exam. ACCA don't see them. That's what I would think. I'd be like, I can't do that because they'll know I'm rubbish if I fail one. Absolutely anonymous. I know it's your account, but it will not count in any way. Do not worry. And you can go in, you can practice, you can play, you can try and break it, you can self-mark, see the model answers, do them multiple times, and that is really, really useful to you. I've got here probably about 12 screens. You think, gosh, she'll be here forever. Just applied skills, these PEC and instant responses and instant gratification. You've got multiple choice ones. You've got multiple responses. Now, I'm so obsessed with this. Did you notice, and I did, and nobody else has, it's my little gem for the sit-in, multiple choice have a circle just before the A, B, C, D. That's called a radio button. I never knew that. So if it's a multiple choice, so you've got to pick one, excuse me, if you pick one, it's a circle. If you pick more than one, it's a square. I mean, that was just groundbreaking to me. I don't think you probably noticed that, but the radio button, it was a circle for just picking one and a square for picking 2. So just something to spot if you're there in the mad rush of dashing through. Just have a look. Have I picked them all? It says which 2, but just if it catches your eye, is it a circle? Is it a square? Is it a circle for 1, so you've got bullseye for 1, or is it a square so you can hit multiple ones? You've got fill in the blank, and just watch this. This is where everyone goes wrong. And I feel so cruel. I just stand behind people waiting for them to go wrong, and then I'll go, it says to the nearest dollar. You've all been there. Look to see how they want it responding. So many people lose marks I say it's my little entertainment in a revision class. How many people will put 1 instead of 1,000? So just make sure you are answering it in the format they want, to 1 decimal place to the nearest 1,000, and it catches. You've all been caught out. And so I just wait for students to do that on a class, and then they learn. Okay, the next one I've got is a drag and drop, not as popular, but you just have to literally drag them across to where they fit. You've got drop down lists, so you've got a drop down and you just pick which one it is from a drop down. Hotspot questions, where you have to touch a certain area of the screen, easily exemplified by a SWOT analysis, and you'd have to press which of the quadrants it is. So you've got hotspot questions, hot area questions, where you have to click as you're going across. And then you've got case questions, where there's 5 or so questions hung to one scenario. So it says OT and students just think, oh, that's multiple choice. No, there's so many of them. They are very sophisticated. What about the OTs? Go through once strongly. Do not go back and undo and talk yourself out of it. Your gut reaction will probably be right, because you're very good at OT questions, because you like them and you've practiced them, and you'd rather do those than CRQ questions. So once through carefully, and then just watch for those responses in zeros, thousands, dollars. And so just go through once, look for your case studies. They are slightly harder, those case OTs, but we tend to do quite well. What we don't do quite well on is these constructive responses. Now, be aware that you've got slightly different constructive responses. So for applied skills, you get scenario on the left and prescribed by the examiner, is it Word or is it spreadsheet, on the right. When you come to strategic professional, you've got floating exhibits on the left, and then you have to decide and clearly mark to the examiner whether you're going to do it in spreadsheet, word processor, or slides. So just being aware that they are similar but different. The functionality at applied skills is the same functionality in the spreadsheet and word processors at strategic. It's just how they're presented, left and right, or lots with floating tiles. It's the same response functionality. So spreadsheets, use them, practice them, do your key pro formas in them. Be aware that you've got certain things that are similar but certain things that are different. Show your workings. And people ask me, how do the examiners see our workings? Because on the spreadsheet, you can just see the total figure, but behind it, there might be some workings. The markers, examiners will get a little key at the bottom. It tells them what's in every single cell. So they will see those workings. You will get credit if you've got your workings shown, but you just get the wrong answer. Obviously, if there's no workings and the wrong answer, you get 0. So it really is key to use the workings. You've got an electronic calculator. You have a physical calculator if you wish to. And you also have, obviously, the spreadsheet formulas. So things like IRR, sum, equal, they're all there. They're very, very similar to Microsoft Excel. So have a look, have a play, and as I say, just watch that reset button, because it will clear everything. And I hope everyone has an accident with that before their real exam. Okay, just think it maybe just undoes the last thing. It doesn't undo the last thing, it just wipes everything, which is a surprise. You've then got the normal formulas are there. There is an IRR one, an NPV one, and I really recommend you go to those 15-minute videos. How might you use and which formulas might you use for PM? How might you use and what formulas might you use for TX? So do visit those and practice and know what formulas show your workings. If it's not there, you won't get your marks. There are some things that are different. So merging cells is not available. Spell check does not work. You won't get penalised for bad spelling. F2 does not work for editing. Can't add or delete rows, so you're going to have to be moving things up and down. But the more you practice, the more you know to leave 5 lines, 4 lines on a standard pro forma. So you need to play in it, to play, to practice, to get to perfection. Your word processing, you've got your editing functions across the top. They are quite similar. We don't, as I say, want to have a perfect typeset answer, but I do expect it to have subheadings, paragraphs, the biggest thing at the top, lower down, your lower points. I'd expect you to be planning in this. So when I used to do my exams, it was those little spider diagrams. I would be typing in my subheadings as I'm planning, and I can move things around. It would be amazing. Don't do my exams again though. I've also got my navigation tools. So make sure you do check, have I got everything? Have I missed any questions? if particularly you are deciding on doing section C, your CRQ questions, before some of your OT questions that applied skills. You've got electronic highlighters, electronic strike-throughs, and I bet most people in this room have never used the electronic highlighter, and that means you've not picked out the company name, the subsidiary name, the director's name, so you're not going to be able to transfer those as easily to your answer. And it's just so easy when you're used to doing a pen to then go, I've got to electronically do this. Do it on a piece of paper, you should do that. It'll take ages. You've practiced it. It will not take ages once you've practiced, and it'll be the best thing you can do. Show those calculations. When you've got your floating tiles, this is strategic. Remember, you can open up many tiles. Get used to how you're going to stack them. You can't see everything at once. So just think about, well, I'm always going to have my answer space there, the spreadsheet space there, my exhibits open like this. I took ages to decide how I wanted to organize my screen for answering strategic ones, and say there are more efficient ways of answering it than just having them all stacked in as a big cascade. You want to go, right, that's where I'll do my Word, that's my spreadsheet, and then I'll have a cascade system going for the exhibits. Look how you can have them all sort of cascading down. You can have your word space open. You can copy bits across from your exhibits. Just don't copy everything across. You've got then the requirements. Best thing you can do when you are opening up a response area is I copy the requirements into my word processor, and then I just insert space between them so the marker and me can see where I'm answering each question. I can make sure I've not missed it. You've got, what about negative marking? There's no negative marking. There's own figure rule still works the same as it did in handwritten times. So if you did section A and it totally went wrong and you didn't get a number, B builds on A, just go assume it was £1,000 and continue. You will not lose marks for saying I've assumed it's a number. You'll lose marks in A because you couldn't get to it. But in part B, because you've just assumed a number and continued correctly to the end, you could get full marks for that because they will not penalise you twice. So thinking about own figure rules, showing me the workings, thinking about grammar and spelling, they will not penalise you for grammar and spelling because this is not sat by everybody who's English speaking. So they will not penalise you for grammar and spelling as long as we can see it, read it and understand it. So the key thing is practice. I'll say your action plan for the next 3 weeks, get in that software, assign yourself those mock exams, past exams, do your questions out of your physical book in the software. Get used to highlighting companies' names electronically. Show me the workings. Get your pro formas set out so you don't have to think about it in the exam. You know exactly what you're going to do. And then prioritize when you're typing up your answers. What do you do on the day? Just do your best. You do your best and you have performed, so you'll do well. As long as you put the work in these next 3 weeks and you've got everything sorted out, the computer should not be anything that brings you nerves on that day. I say it's worth the effort. Once you've qualified, that final feeling, you get that email and you go, oh, cry because you've qualified. It's worth it. And the time that you're putting in to do practice and computer exams will help you for every single one of your exams because there is transfer of skills. There's transfer of the formulas. You'll use the same formulas in FM as AFM and PM as APM. So don't think, I haven't got time to practice on the software. It's the best investment you will make in your exams. So hopefully some helpful tips there.
Wow, excellent. I must say the session is jam-packed with tips, and there's a lot that you managed to get into 1 hour. Thank you so much. You definitely make a good point for practicing on the software, in particular to see how you want to organize your desk or the floating spaces.
Floating tiles.
The floating tiles.
Yes.
Yes. So I think that's, yes, everybody will probably have their particular way and which makes sense for them, but it's not something that you want to spend time on in your exam to see what method works best for you. Then a couple of other things that I liked is you said in the CBE for the applied skills, it's 1.8 minutes per mark. But if you can shave off a couple of seconds or minutes there, then you can use the spare time to do the longer questions. So I quite like that. And the other thing that I really like, which is probably what I would have done intuitively, I think, or would kick myself for not doing, is to write down the clock time next to each question. I
My
love that.
university lecturer told me that for my degree, and it's the best thing I've ever learned. And it works for accountancy exams and every other exam as well. Yeah, it really works.
Because it might take a couple of tries where you say, okay, so I know I must spend 20 minutes on this and I must spend half an hour on this and 5 minutes on this, but then you get so lost that you actually don't know where you are in that 20 minutes. And to say, hey, I should be finished at 9:18, but it's 9:15. That's very powerful.
Have that clock next to you. I always have my clock. You'll never always have a clock.
The other thing which I quite like, you referred to it as a bit of a cheat, but it's such a nice way to teach people, is to say, write out your answer and then highlight the company name and the people and the assets, just to discover for yourself, what, I didn't even, now I know what they're saying. I didn't refer back to the case study properly. And I like the copy and paste that you said that you do in the exam. But obviously the one thing that I want to remember from this session is that you have a favorite verb.
I love that verb.
You know, it's totally nerdy.
Keep that to myself, don't I? But it really is. And when I've written questions, they all know it's going to be in there. Compare and contrast.
Yes.
Nobody can do it, and it's a high level verb. So everybody in my class knows how to do a compare and contrast.
That's fantastic. So thank you very much for an excellent session. Our students, as I usually say, in South Africa, we're so far removed from everybody, and we sometimes just need to feel a little bit closer to the action and be reminded that we are studying a global qualification. So it's a joy and a pleasure to have had you with us for 3 sessions. Anybody who has missed the previous sessions can contact IPDC and we can mail them to you. And with that, I want to say thank you, a big thank you to Claire, and thank you to Tom from BPP who made it possible.
Thank you very much, and good luck everybody in June. Make sure you pass those exams because you've practiced.
Excellent. I'm going to call it a night. In one of the sessions, I had a student that said, what? No, I don't understand. Oh, you're not trying to sell me anything.
No, I just want you to
we just want you to do best written exams, and we are here to share what we know. And thank you for joining us, and thank you for investing in your future by taking this time out and join us. Excellent.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. If there are any more questions, thanks, Zolani. You're welcome to contact IBDC in the morning. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.